Zoom, 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 zoom. The world is in a mess.
Well, I've really enjoyed your music. I usually, getting into the world of Gershwin is such a wonderful place, I'm sure, as a musician. I know it is as a listener. And I typically wait, but I've already played a track on the show. So I'm looking
Oh,
forward, yeah, to peeling back the layers and getting into it. So thank you for taking a minute out today.
oh, happy, very happy to be here.
So where are you located on the planet?
I'm in New York City.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Cool.
New
Well,
York.
I'm in the belly button of America. I'm in Kansas City, Missouri, one of the original cradles.
Yeah.
So before we get into the new album, I want to know first and foremost, one of the big things that swayed a lot of creativity in the way that people approached life was COVID. 5 years ago, this thing was still raging. How did you
hmm
get through that era, and how did it influence the way that you create and live today?
Well, getting through that was difficult for everybody, and I remember feeling really despondent at some point in the middle of the summer, driving around listening to a classical music station, and the Nutcracker came on, and I just burst into tears. I said, "Am I ever going to hear live music again?" And I started delving back into the things that give me a lot of joy, which is American songbook things, which is songs from the 70s and 80s. So I started creating just for myself and with my family, and they're musicians and creative people. So we did a lot of that. We did some videos, we did some working together, doing gathering people from all over the place and doing like those Zoom sessions, and that really helped. And when the pandemic was really ending, I had an opportunity. Well, I guess it was 2022 to start singing again live. And I just grabbed that opportunity. I said, this is going to heal me, it's going to heal other people. And it was really more of a drive. I kind of stopped singing for a few years pre-pandemic, and it really spurred me on to keep going out there. And when I was able to finally start singing again live, people's reactions were they were so grateful to be able to hear music and see people and experience that together. So it just kind of spurred me on, knowing that that fed my soul so much, and I know it helps other people. And those the songs that I love to sing, besides like pop tunes and stuff I grew up with, of course I love that. But the things that really speak to me are a lot of those lyrics from the American Songbook era, and in particular Ira Gershwin. They're very truthful, they're very pure, they're very honest, they're charming. They're not cynical, they're not mean. They're at the root of it, from the heart. So I really took a liking to those songs again, once again in my life.
Yeah, for sure. So what are you hoping the listener gets from the new album?
Well, I hope they can harken back to a time when, as I was saying, lyrics were pure and the sentiment is pure. And I hope they can find the joy in that. Things like "Swonderful" or "I've got a crush on you," which is still a phrase we use today. If people can remember the purity of that. And I hope they can remember back to a time when maybe they were introduced to these songs, whether it was through a parent or, in my case, my grandparents, and how much they loved that music. It's nostalgic in a way, but I think it can be fresh. I hope they take a sense of joy and happiness. There's a lot of trauma for people in this world every day. And I always feel like the solution is to listen to great music and great lyrics that are not cynical and mean, that are joyful. And there's a song that I did not put on the album that I just didn't have room for, but I sing in my live show, called "Things Are Looking Up."
Yeah.
The lyrics are, "Things are looking up. It's a great little world that we live in." And I think we have to remind ourselves of that. Not the negativity, but the positive feeling and the joy that these, George and Ira Gershwin had in creating these songs and making people happy, which is what I like to do when I perform live.
You know what's amazing? I just thought about this. We need this positivity more than ever right now with the darkness that's happening in our
Yeah.
world. But a lot of these songs were made during like major wars, major atrocity, right? Like when the
Yeah.
20s resurgence came back, the roaring 20s, it was during they just got out of a pandemic with the Spanish flu. There was
Yes.
all kinds of tumult going on,
Yeah.
war. So yeah, it's
You're
amazing.
100% right. And I think about that because some of these songs are nearly 100 years old
Yeah.
and they still speak to people. I sing a song, "Someone to Watch Over Me," when I do that live. And I remember doing that at a restaurant a couple years ago, at, a beautiful music venue. And this young woman, she had to be about 20. I started singing "Someone to Watch Over Me," and it was Father's Day. And she got out her phone and she FaceTimed her father. And she said, Dad, they're playing our song. And I'll never forget that. I said, this
Yeah.
song is like 90 years old, and this woman and her father have this connection. I said, these songs still really speak to people. And a lot of these songs were featured in the great Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers musicals, Top Hat, Swing Time, and that was in the early 30s when people were still really suffering post-war, post-depression. Everything was bad was happening, and people really escaped to go see these beautiful movies with these incredible songs that gave them a sense of positivity. And I feel like in so many ways, like you said, we're reflecting back to 100 years ago. It's another cycle, and
Yeah.
these songs still work. People still need happiness and joy. They don't need negativity and bad rhymes.
Yeah, for sure. So you've had a history of being a performer on Broadway. You're clearly very active as a singer. Take me back to the beginnings. Are you originally from New York?
No, I'm originally from outside Detroit. My
Okay.
parents grew up in Detroit, and I was surrounded by music. My father and mother are really into classical music, and my dad's on the board of the opera there. So I was raised really meeting opera singers and listening to that music. And I kind of stumbled across some of these old cabaret albums my mother had. She had a Bobby Short album, she had a Bette Midler album, and I kind of started getting interested in that. But I was raised watching the musicals in the middle of the night. My brother and sister and I would set our alarm and wake up and watch these RKO picture movies at 2 o'clock in the morning before you could stream everything. And we became enamored with these incredible songs from that great era, American Songbook era. Our grandparents encouraged that. So I really fell in love with that music as a young person. And then when I finally went to the University of Michigan to the School of Music there for musical theater, I really took a liking to that kind of music. And I had an opportunity post graduation when I moved to New York. I eventually did the European tour of George and Ira Gershwin's musical Crazy for You. And I did that all over Europe for a couple of years, nearly 300 performances. And I love the music so much. And I realized I never, ever got tired of it. Sometimes you do a musical, it doesn't have great music. Maybe some of the jukebox musicals, I can get really tired of that music. It becomes really trite, bad rhyming, predictable melodies. But that music really stuck with me. And I loved it so much, and my voice really fit with that music. And then soon after that, I was hired to go help open the Ira Gershwin Theater in San Francisco. So I went out there and I was able to sing with all these, stars of the jazz and cabaret world. And I got to sing some of these songs for the heirs to the Gershwin family. So it really struck me as a kind of this Gershwin kept following me everywhere. And then I decided to, when I started singing again out of the pandemic, to do an all Gershwin cabaret in New York City. So my arranger and I, we worked on all these wonderful pieces, and I did 4 performances, 4 sold out shows in New York City of my cabaret. And out of that, I decided, I really want to share this music. I feel like I have something to say with it. They're fresh, jazzy arrangements. And I wanted to make an album and to kind of bring it back into people's consciousness again. And I don't know if there's a lot of Gershwin albums coming out every year. I mean, there's certain songs that are very famous that people always do, but I wanted to kind of share that again with the world and put in a few tracks that aren't the famous pieces. So I was able to sneak on a song, Slap That Bass, which is just me and a bass player, and a great song called Lorelei, which is an unusual song that I really loved. And then I put in a couple of famous ones, like The Man I Love, which everybody knows. I hope they know it. If not, you should take a listen. It's a great song. So I really wanted to share that again. And I had such a legacy with loving the Gershwin music as a child, as an adult in the professional world. And I felt like, why not? It's the time to share it.
So you finally come to New York. What was the first stage you played on? Whether it was as a performer or as a singer, where you were like, wow, I made it. I'm here. This is amazing.
Well, I remember in the very beginning when I moved to New York, it was so hard to get a job. And at that time, you read the Backstage newspaper and you find the auditions and you learn the subway trying to get to all these different locations. And the first time I felt like I was a working actor, it had taken me 6 months to get a job. And one afternoon, I got a phone call from my agent and I got 3 job offers in the same day and they all conflicted. But I felt like, oh my gosh, I finally have made it. And when I finally got a Broadway tour, and then I ended up on Broadway doing the musical Footloose, which is a really fun show, I just kind of breathed a sigh of relief. I said, this is what I wanted. I finally got to Broadway. And it was funny though, because when you get into, we're at the Richard Rodgers Theater where Hamilton is now, and you get to these theaters and they're not very glamorous. Most of them are pretty old. It's very cramped backstage, it's cramped on stage. And I remember thinking, wow, the theaters I played on the road across the United States were far more glamorous, way bigger, much newer. But it was, the whole idea of being on Broadway. And then at some point in your career in theater, people start calling you on the phone, just hiring you instead of having to go through the auditions and waiting with people or getting your appointment. And I think at that point, I was kind of like, okay, I feel like I don't have to always audition and I've, quote, made it. So, you start off in regional theaters and then you tour the United States, you end up in New York. I did a lot of smaller productions in New York. But it's a joy to be able to hop on the subway and just go to work and then come back home. You're not away from your family. You're not in Europe, which I loved working in Europe. But at some point, you kind of take yourself out of the mix there and you want to be relevant again. So you kind of have to be in New York. Um, but it's once I kind of hit Broadway and did all that, I decided I wanted to take a step back and had a family, and that was also like a life goal. I wanted to have children, which I have 3 kids, and it's great. And so that I took a pause there for a while, and still kept doing some singing and some concerts and local things. And I did a little bit of directing, ran a theater company in the summers. And then I knew it was time that my kids are older. I still have something to say. I want to keep performing. And then I kind of jumped back in, not really touring, doing shows anymore because I kind of got over that. But I wanted to start working with my own trio, doing songs that I really chose to do in my own way. So in theater, you have to do the song a certain way, and you have to do it the same pretty much every night. You got to hit your marks. It's dangerous otherwise. When you're working with a trio or just a pianist, you have a lot more freedom. So that was really fun for me to kind of rediscover my creativity by making my decisions about what I want to sing and how I want to sing it, keys, tempo, all that stuff. So in some ways, it's really much more freeing than having to be exactly where you need to be doing a Broadway show or an off-Broadway show. So it's a lot of fun.
So, as a performer, as a singer, after all these years, what do you like the best about it? What is it that gets you up every day and motivates you to continue to do this work?
Well, there's a couple things. One is a personal challenge that, I want to keep adding new songs to my repertoire and just keep myself relevant. But honestly, when I'm doing I do a lot of live performances, and every time whether it's a small audience in a restaurant or a larger jazz club or a big stage, you want to feel the connection with the audience. And when I see people reacting in a positive way, they nudge their spouse or their date and say, "Oh, I love this song," or they start feeling all romantic when I sing "Embraceable You," and they kind of cuddle up to each other. I feel like I'm of service in some ways. I'm helping create an atmosphere. I'm giving them a wonderful night out in New York City. I love singing for the tourists in New York City. I played at a place called Winnie's Jazz Bar at the Refinery Hotel pretty regularly. And they are so happy to be in New York City, having the greatest night of their life, hearing a jazz singer playing some songs they know. I'll sing My Funny Valentine and they get so excited, or I'll sing a song from the 80s and they all know it. And I'm giving them a really great experience of live music in the greatest city in the world, in an elegant situation, hearing great music, hopefully by a band that they appreciate. And I just get a real kick out of it. I get a real thrill out of watching people respond to this music that I love so much. So it's not so much ego, look at me. It's like, look what we're creating together, and watching you experience this. And, I'll have some people I know the Japanese tourists are the best because they come and they sit right in front. They love jazz. They're so respectful. They watch you the whole time. They're engaged in it. It's just really fun. I guess I'm always going to be happiest being a live performer. Recording is very different. It's you still have to give your all, and I still am in the moment and acting, but it's not the same thing. I think it's probably the same for people who do a lot of television or film. Being on stage or in a live audience, you really feed off them and you feel their energy and you give back to them, and it's a mutual exchange. It's like a little mini relationship every night, and I really thrive on that. So that makes me happy. If I'm tired and I figure, oh my gosh, how am I going to sing till 11:30 tonight? I think about that. I think maybe it's somebody's first time in New York City and they don't go to a lot of jazz clubs, and I want to inspire them to keep going out and hearing the music and participating. So it's inspirational for me to think about that.
Why do you love this art form we call jazz?
Well, I think it's because you have freedom and creativity.
Yeah.
Because as I was saying, when you do theater, you really have to do things a certain way. And when I was studying music, especially musical theater, there was no room for any kind of interpolation of notes. You had to sing famously, Rodgers and Hammerstein, you've got to sing the notes exactly where they are. You can act through that. But in jazz, I feel like you can express yourself even more just by taking a song and turning it inside out, making a ballad an up tempo or vice versa. You can give new life to it. So instead of sometimes having to reinterpret exactly the way, somebody sang the songs from Oklahoma, you can reinvent them and hopefully inspire people to revisit those songs and enjoy them on another level. So it's really the freedom, and you have that freedom in the moment too when you're with your band. You can change the tempo, change the feeling, just let's just do me and the bass player, then we're going to bring in the piano. So it's a spontaneity that I think I was always craving that you don't necessarily get in a theatrical performance in a Broadway show or a theater piece. So it's that way of kind of pushing your boundaries, pushing yourself to try new things, and that can be really scary. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but when it does work, it's really really fun, and you can feel it with the band and you can feel it with the audience. So creative freedom, I think.
So if you could go back in time and see one jazz show in a time machine, one show, where are you going? Who are you going to see?
Definitely Ella Fitzgerald, and I'd go see her at the Carlisle Hotel. I ran into a woman many years ago in New York City, and I think we were at a bakery and we're chit-chatting, and Ella Fitzgerald was on the radio, and one of my kids was there, and I said, "Who is that?" They said, "It's Ella Fitzgerald." And I said, "Yeah, good job." And the woman next to me was quite old, and she said, I saw Ella Fitzgerald at my prom. We went to the Carlisle Hotel and we heard her sing her concert. I said, "Oh my God," to me, to see someone like that in an intimate venue would be the greatest thing on the planet. So she's the greatest. I never saw her live, but I would give anything for that. Absolutely.
I would do the Apollo the first time she was on there.
Yes.
You
And
know?
she was such a young girl. She was like 12 or 13 or
Yeah.
something.
And she
Yeah.
was really, from what I understand, socially, when she wasn't on stage, it was just a little bit shy and awkward.
Yep.
But when
Yep.
she was on stage at all, so I'd imagine this, the Apollo is just
Yeah.
already a lion's
Incredible.
den. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it would be
And they're
something.
not so kind if you're not good. And I
No.
read about her first appearance there. The funny thing was, she said that she was really a dancer
Yeah.
and she was going to go on and do some dancing. But the woman before her was like a great dancer and she felt all intimidated. So she's like, "I'm just going to sing something because that's my second skill." Can you imagine?
That's
That's what I do
great.
just for fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a
Amazing.
great layer to it. So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, everyone that you play with on the bandstand, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I feel like I'm really a conduit, a vessel for this music from that era. I feel like I give a sense of elegance when I perform and fun. So I feel like my family thinks, or my friends think me as elegant and fun, and I like to do the American songbook music. And then every once in a while, I throw in a pop tune or, a song that's relevant to me from the 1980s. So I think that they think I'm a songbird who likes to sing these songs from, almost 100 years ago. And I do, I think, an excellent job of bringing that to people. So I think that they think I'm maybe a retro jazz singer in my heart.
I love it. So if anyone wants to pick up a copy of the latest album, The Magic of Gershwin, they want to catch you live, any of your previous work, any of the good business, where do they go?
You go to my website, Juliet Ewing, JulietEwing.com. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Juliet Set. I play all over New York City. My album is available streaming everywhere. You can buy an old school CD from me, which people still use,
Yeah.
shockingly,
Yeah.
which is really fun. And I hope you come see me or follow me.
Excellent. Juliet, this has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for your time talking about the album and your career. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's been great. Thanks for
Yes.
having me.
Thank you.